Hey everyone, this is Mike, and it's been a little while since I made a video like this, and I'm 100% going to blame that on Lost Ark. Game came out about 4 weeks ago, and during those 4 weeks, most of my time awake in the day has been spent playing this game, because it's a game that I've waited for almost 7 years at this point. Actually, it might be longer than that at this point. But point being, I've waited a very long time to play this game, and now that it's here, I've just completely let myself go and let myself get invested in this game and just see what is what. So today I kind of want to talk about my experience with the game so far. I've played about, I want to say 350 hours. It's way more than that, but a lot of that time has been spent sitting in queue and dealing with other issues that the game has had, because the launch of the game wasn't all that bad. There have been a lot of server issues, especially on the European side of things. I think for America it's quite fine, but luckily enough, over the last week we haven't really had any issues anymore, and it's been a much more stable experience for us here in Europe as well. So that's why I kind of wanted to make this video, talk about my experiences with the game itself. I'm not really gonna go too deep into, like, for example, the server issues that there were, or for example some of my discontent with the publisher as well, because there's a lot of things that they could do better. But I just want to talk about the game, maybe get some of you guys excited to play the game as well, and just kind of go through the different things that you can do. So in Lost Ark, there is at the moment a lot to do. You have your story, you have your endgame content, and you have a lot of side content as well. And that is because Lost Ark has a lot of horizontal progression. Now, if you're someone like me and you're coming from Final Fantasy XIV, you're mostly only used to vertical progression. Item level is the name of the game in Final Fantasy, and that is pretty much it. There's nothing else really to do if you want to make your character stronger or your account stronger. The only thing you care about is your item level. Now in Lost Ark, because of the kind of game that it is, there are a lot of other activities that you can do that will help you flesh out your account. Get extra skill points, get skill runes, get extra currencies that you can use to, like, for example, buy upgrade materials, get extra stat potions. There is a lot of other stuff that you can do in the game that all takes a fair amount of time, but it is also going to contribute towards something. Doing collectibles in Lost Ark is going to reward you with strength for your account. So it's not just for your one character that you're doing it on, it is going to be for all of the characters that you have on that same server, which is referred to as your roster. So there's a lot of things that you can do like that, and it's been really refreshing, because in Final Fantasy, if I want to work on my character, the only thing I can do is grind tomestones and do the raid once a week, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing else I can do to make them stronger, whereas in Lost Ark, I can log in, do my Guardian raids, do my Chaos dungeons, do my Abyssal dungeons once a week as well, to try and improve my item level. But if I still want to invest more time into my character outside of that, I can do some collectibles, I can do some side content that maybe gives me more skill points, or something that gives me a chance at getting more skill runes unlocked, and then all of those things work together to make my roster stronger. And it's a really fun experience as well, because the last few days I have been leveling a Berserker, for example, and right out of the gate when I started that new character, I already had 50 skill points available to me and a bunch of skill runes that I could equip to all of my skills, and that is because I already invested the time on my main character, and now all of my alts can benefit from that time invested as well, and it's been a really good experience. Of course, there is still a lot of vertical progression in Lost Ark as well, the item level grind, which a lot of people have not really enjoyed that much. For me personally, I think it's fine, but that's also probably because I come from other Korean games that have a way worse system than Lost Ark has. So for example, in Lost Ark, when you're upgrading a piece of gear, at the beginning that piece of gear is gonna have a 100% upgrade chance, but eventually that chance is going to go down quite significantly. For example, right now on my main character, I think most of my pieces of gear are sitting at around a 30% chance to succeed the upgrade. So it's getting quite low, and it will get a lot lower than that as well. But there is also a system in place that makes it so that every time that you fail an upgrade, you do get an increased chance every time, until you hit a point where it's just going to guarantee you get the upgrade eventually. Takes a lot of time, makes it a little bit annoying when RNG isn't going your way, and for example your friends are way ahead of you in the item level grind, and then you're locked out of certain content that your friends might be able to do, but it's still miles better than something like Closers or Black Desert Online, where you can de-level your equipment, or in Black Desert your equipment can just go poof and you have to go grind for a new one. So definitely a lot better than that. It's not a perfect system, but I am quite okay with it, probably because I have played the two other aforementioned games and their upgrade system was way worse than what we have in Lost Ark. Now, in terms of the combat, that is where I think the game shines. The combat in Lost Ark is just fantastic, and it's actually a whole lot deeper than I first gave it credit for, because I have played the game a little bit on the other servers, but I never really got that far into it that I realized that there is so much more depth to the combat itself. A lot of your skills work together with themselves, but not just that, you also might want to bring certain skills or equipment as well to certain fights, depending on what the fight is going to throw at you. So most fights in Lost Ark are going to have a counterattack, and what that means is that the boss will glow blue, and if you're standing right in front of its head and you use your counter skill, you can actually stun the boss for a second or two. Really cool, because not only is it going to stop the boss from doing their painful attack, but it's also going to give a DPS opportunity for the rest of your team. And there are two more mechanics like that. There are a weak point check, which makes it so that you need to use weak point skills on that specific body part to like break a body part of a boss. That makes it so that they can't do certain attacks anymore. Might also have to do it with something else, like for example removing a shield from a boss so that you can actually deal damage to it to continue the fight or something like that. But usually it's going to be taking away very annoying mechanics, like for example the lava turtle. Once you break his shell, he can't rain down random lava bolts anymore, whereas as long as the shell is available, he might still do that. Very annoying to deal with. And then another one is a stagger check, which is where you need to use skills that have a lot of stagger damage attached to them, and then you can break that shield that is going to be your stagger check. If you fail the stagger check, usually results in a wipe, or it could mean that the boss is now going to power up and you're going to have a lot more punishing attacks being thrown at you. So it's really nice how the combat system is working like that. So depending on the fight that you're doing, you might want to bring different skills that can deal with these different mechanics that the bosses are going to be throwing at you. In the beginning, when I went through the first few Guardian raids, there also weren't too many like mechanics actually in there. It was mainly just dodge the attacks that the boss is doing and you'll be fine. But as we got further into the fight, there will be actual mechanics that you have to deal with as well. Like for example, some clips in the background that I'm going to be showing you. This is a boss called Alberhastik, and he has 4 different forms, and depending on the form that he is in, he is going to be doing a different wipe mechanic that you need to handle in a different way as well. And it's really fun just learning all of those mechanics and then actually executing them correctly as well. I do know that Amazon Game Studios has nerfed a lot of these mechanics, unfortunately enough. They'll still do one hell of a lot of damage if you do end up failing them. So you still want to try and do the mechanic correctly. It's just not going to mean an immediate wipe and maybe a restart if some of your teammates do end up failing them. Overall, been a lot of fun. For the Abyssal Dungeons as well, a lot of mechanics in there that are just a whole lot of fun to work around. Especially because of the kind of game that Lost Ark is. In Final Fantasy, the only thing that you care about is keeping that GCD rolling and using all of your off-global cooldowns on cooldown as well, whereas in Lost Ark, more often than not, it's actually worth not blowing all of your skills whenever they come up, but you want to use them in a certain sequence, or you want to coordinate with your support that they buff you whenever you go into your burst phase or something like that. Or you might want to wait until a boss does a certain attack, like for example whenever they start their stagger mechanic, and you want to save your specific stagger skills for when that mechanic happens, especially when you're doing it on item level as well. Once you outgear it, it becomes a little bit easier, although stagger checks and weak point checks still require you to hit all of your skills. They're not going to be outgeared by item level. So it's still really nice to see that the combat is just so fun. So much fun, in fact, that even classes that I first thought I was not going to enjoy, now that I have played with them more, unlocked more tripod skills and such, I'm actually really enjoying them. Like Gunlance and Berserker are 2 classes that when I first saw them from the trailer and from playing around with them briefly in the character creator, I didn't really think I was going to be enjoying them all that much, and right now I have a Gunlance at level 50 that I've played a fair bit, and then I'm also leveling a Berserker at the moment. Once you do unlock some of your skill trees and get some more stats on them, and also get some engravings, because that's something that I never really got to play with during the beta and on the other servers, it actually changes the way your gameplay feels quite a bit, and it makes things so much better, to the point where I'm actually really excited to start leveling all of the other classes as well now, because I just want to experience them at level 50 with engravings enabled, because that actually changes the gameplay quite a bit from time to time, and it's just an amazing feeling. So for me, combat definitely takes the cake in this game. Can definitely recommend it to anyone that is an ARPG fan, and even those that aren't. A lot of my friends didn't play ARPGs before, and they've been having a blast with Lost Ark as well, so I can definitely recommend it for you. In general, this game just has a lot to offer. There's a lot of story content there, not just the main story, but there's also a lot of side stories to be had. For example, while you do have your main storyline that is going to be bringing you throughout the different continents of the game, there are also a lot of islands in the sea itself, and each island has their own story. Some of them have very good stories as well, and I think the main reason for that is because they are a very focused experience, I guess you could say. Like, going from 1 to 50 to the story is going to feel like a slog at some point, at least to someone like me, because I'm someone that mainly plays for the gameplay, but I still want to experience the story as well. But regardless, going from 1 to 50 felt like kind of a slog for the last few hours, but when I then go to a random island and I'm then, okay, let's see what this island story has to offer, then it could be quite a good experience that I just get to experience the story in like half an hour, maybe an hour, depending on how long it actually ends up being, and I am someone that prefers those focused story elements. For example, the way the endgame story works as well is kind of similar like that. When you reach endgame, you need to get to a certain item level before you are allowed to progress to the next continent. So it actually makes you take a break from the story, then do endgame for a few days or a few weeks, depending on how much you actually play the game, and then you go to the next continent, then you have another 2 to 3 hours of story content there, and then you're again going into that endgame loop until you hit the next item level, and then you can move on with the story again, and it just kind of repeats like that until you hit the end of the story, which is where I am at right now, with my main character at least, and that has been a much better experience to me personally than the 1 to 50 like story grind, I guess you could call it. So overall, the game has been a very good experience for me, while it did have its issues during launch for sure, and while there are still a couple of things about the game that I might not enjoy that much, like for example the honing system, or a lot of the timed events that you have to do as well, like for example every day there will be different events like a field boss, Chaos Gate, the ghost ship for example. Whenever they show up, you only have specific times in the day that you can actually do these pieces of content, and that is something that I would prefer wasn't always the case, because it means that if you missed the hour window, all of a sudden you're gonna be like, oh damn, next hour I need to make sure I do that, and if you then end up being in some content or you're doing something else and you miss it again, it doesn't really feel all that good. But luckily enough, there's not too much content like that in the game, and overall what is there is just a really good experience. And even if you end up missing out on some of these timed content, it's not the end of the world either. It's just some side content for you to do, and while it usually does help with your account progression, it's also not something that is going anywhere. A lot of the horizontal progression is just going to be there for you to do whenever you feel like doing it, and I think that's a really good thing, that you don't just have to grind it out as fast as possible. You can just do it whenever you feel like doing it. While of course it will give you a benefit in the end game, it's also not going to make or break your character progression either if you decide to do those things on a later date. So overall, Lost Ark has been an amazing experience for me so far. Definitely going to be playing this in the foreseeable future. So far I just can't take my hands off it. The only reason why I'm making this video is because there's server maintenance at the moment, because I've just got so much fun playing this game. And I'm really gonna have to like try to slow down a little bit here or there, because I still need to get other stuff done as well, like make videos, play some other games like Destiny 2, Final Fantasy, and then some other things that might come out as well that I'm interested in. But at the moment, most of my time is going towards Lost Ark, and I am not regretting it one single bit. It's definitely a game I can recommend for everyone to try, because it's just such a good game in general. But anyways, I think that's where I'm gonna end the video right here, because otherwise I'm just gonna keep rambling on about it, because it's just so much that I can talk about for this game, because it's just been such a fun time that I have had in there, and there's also just so much content that I can talk about. if I would want to do so. But I don't want to make this video too long either. I am planning on making another video where I talk about more content specific stuff, like what I think about the story, what I think about some of the endgame content, etc. But that is something that you can look forward to in the future when I do finally do the first Abyssal raid, because that is what came out today, but I do not have the item level to enter that yet, like 99% of the rest of the player base. But we'll get there when we get there, and when I do, you can expect a follow-up video on Lost Ark, because I'm going to be playing this for quite a while, so I will probably make some content on the game as well in the near future. But that's going to do it for me, so I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my patrons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.